Hey there, super friends. This is Joey with Last Point Gaming. Today is Friday, January 12th, 2018. If you want to connect with us on social media, you can friend up our Last Point Gaming Facebook account. Damn it. You can friend up our Last Point Gaming Facebook account. You can follow us on Twitter at Last Point Gaming. You can follow me personally on Twitter at Stranger Sparrow. You can follow or subscribe to us on YouTube, Last Point Gaming. Or you can always reach out directly with an email to lastpointgaming@gmail.com. I get $1 every time I say Last Point Gaming. Not really, but that'd be kind of cool, right? So I feel like I need to talk about the announcements that came out today, and then I'll probably shift to more on my thoughts on the current standard meta and upcoming standard meta and that kind of stuff. So hopefully it won't take long, but I don't know. You know me, once I get rolling on a topic, sometimes I linger longer than I need to. So the announcement came out today from WotC. They're, committed to the safety and security of players at events. So now TOs and LGSs be required to do background checks on judge staff. How do I feel about this? Again, I got nothing to hide in my background, so I really don't care. I'm not like one of those off-grid people that it's like, well, no, nobody can have my information. I mean, my LGS is mostly run by adults. So I'm not particularly worried about, having to provide information. But I can see that situation being different at other LGSs. If you're going to be handing off my information to a 16-year-old kid, because it's not entirely clear what they mean by background checks. Are we Googling public records, or do you mean actually submitting to the proper authorities for that area to have official background checks done? So yeah, as much as there's been a statement, there's still a lot of questions about it. I don't have a problem with it. I still, I don't feel like we should look at this as, oh, cool, it's safe to drop my 11-year-old off at an open and leave for 9 hours and come back and get them, because, the judges are going to be checked, because, again, I still think you're not considering people who just walk in off the street, players, people who are going to be far less noticed skulking around or sneaking off with somebody. Like I said before, a judge who doesn't show up at their post at the scheduled time to do something that they're responsible for doing, they're going to be noticed. People are going to be like, where the flip is this person? I don't know what's happening. But I mean, that's my thoughts on it. And again, I'm not trying to, oh, well, Jeremy said it, so that must mean it's stupid. I mean, I still have no question in my mind this was a faux concern issue. This was a way to rabble-rouse, not really about concern for minors at events. Now, I don't know Jeremy personally, and I could be way off base with that, and, this is just based on his recent actions, his very verbal wish to grind his axe with WotC, and also things he said before when talking about sexism in the Magic community. He did go on a rant a while back, basically acknowledging that there is potential threat from players that really can't be mitigated other than the community watching out for each other. when we talked about, like, does sexism happen in the gaming community? Of course it does. And it should be addressed when it happens. Is it a rampant, widespread issue? Not in my experience. But the whole cross-section of humanity makes up the player base, including sexual offenders. And again, no ID is required to register for a DCI number. So, again, I don't have a problem with these measures. And I think doing something to... WotC was in a tough spot here. Because if they don't respond at all, well, then clearly they don't care about the children. While they're making this huge deal out of this little girl play. If you follow any tournament personality on Twitter, or follow Magic, Wizards of the Coast and everything on Twitter, I'm sure you've seen the post about Dana Fisher. And, hey, I think it's great, and I think getting kids playing is, again, one of those things that will keep the game going. Because if we don't start getting the next, if we don't facilitate the next generation, eventually our player base will all die off, and then the game will die. So, they make this big deal about this little girl playing. Something comes up about possible pedophiles in the judge program. If they don't respond to it, it looks bad. When they do respond to it, it's validating this fear-mongering from a portion of the community that their real goal is just rabble-rouse. So, I actually have been thinking over the last couple days about touching back on this subject again. But, I couldn't quite come up with what I wanted to say and everything, and then the announcement came out today, so I figured I'd talk about it today. I think taking any steps to protect the players is good, on the whole. I think background checks, even legit, what I've, have certifications for. I have clearances for, volunteering at these schools. One of the things, I think I talked about this before, the back to school night every year at the kids' school. It's one of the things that they go over when they have all the parents there is, we need volunteers. However, if you're going to volunteer, you have to go have these checks done. They give you all the information for how to file and everything, and estimation of cost. I think it's about $25 to have, I think there's a total of 3 clearances you need here in Pennsylvania. I can't remember what the third one is. The first one's criminal background. Then there's the child abuse certification, or the child abuse clearance that you've never been suspected of child abuse. It's a special certification. To fail that clearance, you don't need a conviction. You need a strong case that, for whatever reason, didn't go to trial or wasn't a criminal matter, but was, in fact, what CPS deems endangerment, that kind of stuff. Which is why you need it in addition to the regular criminal background check. I'm trying to remember what the third one was, because I remember having to submit it for 3. And, it was kind of a pain in the ass, because they ask for everybody that you've ever lived with. Well, I know when I was a real little kid, pre-memory, I don't actually remember this, but I know it happened. My mom's one brother had lived with us for a period of time. So I had to call my mom and say, hey, didn't you say he lived there? Can you remember the years? Because I got to list all this stuff because I have to have this background clearance done so I can work with this organization and go do these volunteer activities at these schools. If I hadn't listed him, would it have mattered? I don't know, because again, it was before my memory, and usually they only go back like 10 years. But I just want to make sure all my I's were dotted and my T's crossed. So they can be a little bit of a pain, because it may require pinning down information that you just don't have anymore. Like one of the things that they'll ask for every address you've had in 10 years. I know now my husband had a security clearance review done, which is much more detailed than a regular criminal background check because he needed a high-level clearance. But that was one of the things they asked for from him was, all your addresses for the last 10 years. Well, when he was in college, he rented an apartment with a couple of roommates. What is that sound? Is like somebody's horn broken? Is that, I don't know. Anyway, so he rented this apartment and he couldn't remember the address. And like he had to list everybody that lived with him, and he's like, I don't know, it was some kid I went to college with. That was a giant pain, but again, security clearance is much more in depth than, just your regular old background check. So it can require digging up information that you may not really have access to anymore. It might be a hassle to dig up, but all in all, they're pretty painless. I know just for getting mine done for this other organization I've worked with, mine all came back like within the same day, but that is probably because my record is completely clean. I have never been arrested, ever. I have a couple, traffic citations on my record, which is why I don't break traffic laws anymore, because I got caught every fucking time I did it. So, but aside from that, like, I got nothing. Not even, like, records from when I was a minor that, are sealed or whatever. Just, there's nothing there. There's nothing to find. But I know they said that it can take, like, 2 weeks. Well, if you have 30 judges registering for an event, and especially if you're having them file for the background clearances when they apply before their application is accepted or denied, because basically you need to provide this information before we can accept your application and give you the go-ahead. You could end up with potentially a lot more people filing at the same time. And again, like if I'm trying to go judge an open down in Baltimore, the requirements for Maryland may be different than the requirements for Pennsylvania, so there may be additional things I need to file for. I may have to do it through their records department rather than them accepting my clearances from here in Pennsylvania. So it can probably take a little bit longer than, a couple weeks. So like if we're going like all official background checks, then, there definitely needs to be this time span and people need to be made aware. Like, hey, if you're applying to judge for a tournament, and again, a lot of my information only comes from here in the U.S., more specifically to the state of Pennsylvania. So I don't even know how this shit works in other countries. I mean, you're talking to the woman that when Paulo Vitor, a very proud Brazilian, God, I hope I got the right country. I'm going to feel like such a douche. No, I'm like 99% sure he's from Brazil. But anyway, he posted that he was at Nationals the same day I was, so I replied to him and was like, oh crap, I thought I got everybody, but now I got to find you. And his response was very polite. I don't think we're at the same Nationals. Because, like, yes, it is the typical ignorant American attitude that I'm like, yeah, what, other countries? Oh yeah, I guess they're out there. Like, I just completely, I fail to think of Magic as an international game at times. So yeah, I don't claim to know anything about how any of this works in any other country. I'm just speaking from my experience here in Pennsylvania in the United States. Why is traffic so bad? Stupid farm show. Yeah, we have a thing annually here in central Pennsylvania where we pack a bunch of farm animals into a building. Because that makes sense. But that's where you get potato donuts. And potato donuts are fucking amazing. I know they don't sound like they should be amazing. And they don't... No, they're like legit donuts, but they're made with like potato flour. And they are fantastic. Anyway. Sorry for that side trip there. Yeah, I'm still very ambivalent about this issue. I know that when I take Boo to her first Grand Prix, or her first Open, the thought of, well, they checked the judges, so everything's all cool, and I can just kind of not pay attention to where she is for 9 hours, that's not how I'm going to see it. That I really don't care how much you certified the judges. Because it doesn't change the fact that anybody can wander into the conference hall. It doesn't change the fact that any player can be suspect. Especially somebody who views the world in such a skeptical manner and, has anxiety when dealing with other people. You can rest assured that I'm not going to just shrug it off and be like, I'm sure she's fine. That, I'm going to need to talk to her between every round. And, possibly for the first one, I'm not even going to play. I'm basically just going to stalk her around the tournament all day and make sure everything's all right. I think anything to make tournaments safer is good. But I think this may be more of a placebo effect kind of thing. I think the best measure that can be taken to assure player safety at tournaments is boots on the ground, so to speak, security. And the community watching each other's backs. That's why I advocate, if you see somebody getting messed with, somebody being harassed, somebody being bullied, somebody being drug off to a dark corner, because apparently that's what we're worried about now. Say something, do something. Don't be a bystander. Don't allow yourself to be lulled into that, somebody else will take care of it. There are 30 people seeing this happen, so somebody else will do something. Be the one to do something. Don't let it up to some unknown person in the crowd. Speak up. Call a judge. Or, if you feel comfortable doing so, get involved yourself. And, help that person. But again, all that being said, I'm not about predators being part of the judge program or even part of the player base. So any opportunity to weed any of that out, cool. Now, I was reading on Twitter, right before I left the office, that there is concern for how this affects trans members of the judge community. And, unfortunately, that is a situation I know very little about. I do understand that some people, when they... Again, I always struggle with this because I want to put this as respectfully as possible. When they take the measures to start life as a different person than they were, or a different person than they presented as previously, will completely leave the geographic area they lived in and get a fresh, clean start somewhere else. So if they are not open about the fact that before living in that area, they were known to others as somebody different. And now they have to present identification with their old information. There are still areas of this country where it is, in fact, very dangerous to be openly trans or openly gay. Again, I'm like really trying to approach this as absolutely respectfully as I can. If I say something that is not the quote-unquote correct way to say it, or comes across as being disingenuous or offensive, please say something to me. Give me the opportunity to apologize. Please tell me you're not trying to turn left here. Yeah, there you go. And issue a correction after I've been made aware. I never intend to be disrespectful or offensive to people from the trans community, because I'm not trans, and because it's an awkward subject to try to talk about, even with people I know that have transitioned, because you don't want to treat them like a science project. You just want to let them be happy being who they feel like they are. There's not much of an easy opportunity for education on it. So I'm doing my best here, but again, if something I say is, like being the person they feel they are, and you find that offensive, that it implies that it's an easy choice kind of thing, that's not what I mean, of course, but if there's a better way to state that, please, I'm begging you, reach out, let me know. Because I generally believe that so long as you abide, with standards and are not violating other people's rights, be who you are. Do what makes you happy. And if that means that you were born with a male body, but you, in your heart of hearts, feel like you are female, and you take on the process to undergo those changes, which isn't easy, and by God, is not cheap, and most insurance doesn't cover it. I mean, it's a long road, so to assume that people do this all willy-nilly is kind of bullshit, because it requires a lot of dedication. Requires a lot of bravery. Then, yeah, hey, I just want people to be happy. If you want to dress in lime green all the time, cool. If you like Nickelback, it's okay. And I don't mean to cheapen the experience of the trans community by likening it to liking a color or a band, but what I'm saying is I don't judge, and I feel like you're not doing any harm to anybody by living the life that you want to live. So do it. And, I'll support you. So again, if I screw up and say things in a way that looks disrespectful or disingenuous or offensive, please just point it out to me so that I can grow and be better in the future. In any case, because I've never gone through that, having to basically change your identity. It's not something that I think about when they so we're going to do background checks. Well, what exactly does that mean? Does that mean just, provide you my driver's license so, you can see my actual legal information and run my name and make sure nothing comes back? Or do you mean actually submitting to a regular background check? When it comes to an individual, this is something I know just a slight bit about because a close friend of mine in the last couple years transitioned, and she's shared with me some of the steps in the process, including having to get her birth certificate changed and needing that changed to go get her gender changed with the Social Security Administration, to have all the information she needed to go get a new license issued, a driver's license, with her updated information. It's a long process. It's not a quick and simple thing, and in order to get the birth certificate changed, I think you need documentation from a doctor. It's kind of a mess. It's not an easy thing to do. So somebody that's in the middle of all this process, that, say, identifies as Jane and her license says John, and now has to provide that identification, even though she's been working with these people for, 2 years or whatever, while going through all this, and they know her as Jane and don't know that anybody ever called her John. This does present a somewhat unique problem. So, from that aspect, again, I guess this is cisgendered privilege, saying that, hey, you want my info? Cool. There it is. Go ahead, look me up. I don't care. There's nothing I'm hiding. But people don't always hide things for malicious reasons. So in some cases, this is going to end up negatively impacting people who are hiding something, but not something that really needs to be anybody else's business. So, but again, WotC was in a no-win situation here. Either they don't do anything, and then, and this is when I talked about this before, what I said was problematic with this particular topic is it's very convincing as a concern topic. But what about the children? But what about 9/11? Okay, that is a Family Guy reference, by the way, for when Lois was running for, school board, I think it was school board, against Peter, and they were like, oh, what do we do? Because we have all these undecided voters, and it's just just say 9/11 a lot. That is not protecting children from, terrorist attacks. Anyway, when, it looks like a very legitimate issue, and I don't think there's a problem having a discussion about this. I wouldn't say it's wholly an illegitimate issue. I do believe that the place that this came from isn't, oh, I'm so worried about these kids at events. It was, this is something I can latch onto and give WotC a black eye over. But because, we're talking about protecting the most vulnerable members of our community, being children, even people that, say, don't follow Jeremy, as this gets out and gets spread wider and wider, start picking up on this and going, well, okay, I understand the source is not your favorite, but why don't we talk about this? Why isn't this a thing? So, because of that, if WotC doesn't respond to this, this continues to snowball. WotC has responded to this. This is the the lane they decided to take here. Much like, they were screwed whatever they did concerning the Jeremy situation originally. Don't ban him and say, hey, he's saying mean things on the internet, and not even really... He's saying unkind things on the internet, but report him to YouTube, report him to Twitter. This does not fall in our domain. We have never had a complaint about him at a tournament. And, everybody that wants to defend... people he smack talked on are going to get riled up. Ban him, which that's the line they took there. And here we are. They keep getting placed in these no-win situations. So I think actually following through the way they have is really in line with committing to that safety of players that they clung to when banning him. It's like, well, you're creating a hostile environment for the players. You got to go. And then this comes up, and they're like, well, if we don't essentially side with them, because that's how it looks. It's who are they siding with? But if we don't respond to the allegations of, allowing threats to minor players with the same hard line of player safety that we responded to when it came to saying unkind things on the internet, well, now we're waffling. Now we don't have, we're not enforcing things equally. And yeah, I mean, I've been saying this since his banning came out, since all this cropped up, is that, okay, if this is your standard, that's fine, but then it needs to be universally applied. Like, again, I don't follow him, but people I do follow him and share his stuff or like his stuff, and it shows up in my feed. Apparently there's somebody out there who made a Twitter account claiming to be his wife, and all they do is go on about him enjoying being on the receiving end of anal intercourse. I don't know who you are, but really? Like, one, you have nothing better to do with your time. Two, if you're part of the platform of, it is wrong to cyberbully people, how do you justify this? And three, wow, people's sexual preferences are now a thing you're going to make fun of. And I'm not saying that that's a legitimate claim that he enjoys that, but it doesn't matter. His sexual preferences are his and his wife's business. They're nobody else's. I know I don't want anybody getting a hold of my adult entertainment search history. And that's the thing, and I don't know, whoever created this account could just be a watch the world burn kind of troll. That it's not that they align with the progressive side of the community that's like, hey, fluffy puppy dogs. They could just be that kind of person where it's like, oh, sweet, I can fuck with somebody? Great. There's that toxic MTG Twitter account. I've even reported them for advocating violence. And it's focused on him, so that makes it okay, right? No, it does not. You need a universal standard. And if that's okay, you tread lightly when talking about other members of the community. And don't do things that could be construed as inciting harassment. Okay, fine. But then you need to universally follow that, including everybody that felt the need to continue to antagonize him after the banning was put in place. And I mean, not that he needed further antagonizing. As soon as that verdict came down, he was running with it. And he was like, all right, burning it to the ground. And I mean, is anybody really surprised that was his reaction? I'm not. But to make, degrading, snide comments about him, you're just hurting your side of the argument. Because, again, it's this fucking gray, shifting scale of morality based on who the victim is. No. A behavior is either right or wrong. Period. So, again, WotC being in this really no-win situation, chose to err on the side of player safety. I feel it's largely ceremonial, and it's very placebo effect, but this is what they feel they need to do to ensure, more confidence in people attending their events. Okay, I get it. And I think it's okay for judges to be upset about it. And I don't think that necessarily means that they have something in their criminal history to hide, and that's why they're upset about it. I think nobody likes having their personal information dug into. And while judges are compensated for larger events, are they honestly compensated fairly? I don't know. I've never judged at a larger event, so I don't even know what the hell any of that's like. But you may run into a point where you make it such a pain in the ass to be a judge that people are just like, screw it. I don't care. Like, I'm just going to let my cert lapse, and then we're going to end up in a position where we have no judges. As far as if legit, actual through the state police background checks are required, the fees involved, I did watch one of Jeremy's recent videos on this, where he started a GoFundMe to raise funds to help pay for judges' certifications that can't afford it. And to anybody who says, well, if you can't afford that, then you have no business being a judge, fuck you. Yeah, why are you judging people? And also, judges are in fact compensated for larger events. I don't know how much they're compensated or anything else like that, but they do make something off the event, even if it's just in product that can later be liquidated. Again, I don't know how it works because I've never done it. So they do have a material gain from engaging, from doing their judging. So, yeah, that's not really a question. But, I think it might be worth each of the regions looking into starting some kind of fund like that. I know I'd be happy to toss in, and make sure that everybody who wants to judge isn't hindered by not being able to afford to pay for the background check. As far as the website he cited, I'm not sure I would go through them, honestly. You gotta have some real credentials for me to give you my social security number. I will stick to going directly through the state police. And that there, I know even my contract employer, before I got hired on by the firm I work for, at one point, they their health insurance, like I had to fill out some survey to say I didn't want health insurance because we get it through my husband. And to fill out the survey, I had to give my social security number, and I emailed my handler, and I was like, no. And they're like, well, why? And I'm like, because I have no relationship with this company. Because it was the actual health insurance provider that I had to give my social to. And I'm like, I have no relationship with them. I'm not doing this. I don't have the health insurance. I'm not giving them my information. I'll let you know. I don't want health insurance. Why don't I want health insurance? Because I'm already covered by my husband's insurance, which is much better than what you're offering. And, it was a fight. But I finally said, look, this is, part of my privacy rights. I shouldn't have to provide them key identifying information when I'm not receiving anything from them. And that's kind of how I feel. I'm really about that. Which, you see data breaches all the time. So the fewer people I'm providing that information, the better. So yeah, I would prefer to just go directly through my state police department. So that's where we're at. I'm home. I guess I had more to say about this than I thought. As always, if you made it this far with me, thank you very much for listening, and I'll talk to you all, I guess, on Tuesday. I'll do a morning and an evening cast on Tuesday, because I'm off on Monday, unless I have some kind of occasion to, go on a coffee run on Monday or something. I'll do the recording then. But I will talk to you all later.